Good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome to our Tuesday afternoon class. Let's go ahead and jump in and get this started right away. If you go ahead and we go into our calendar, and I will need to pull up the calendar. As you can see, I whoa. As you can see, here are the lessons right here for the week of February 8th. We're going to jump into math. Subtracting mixed numbers and quiz. So let's go ahead and go into subtracting mixed numbers and quiz. So opening up our math class, and it's the one that is due on February 9th. I'm going to go ahead and get some paper out, so that way we have something to write on for this. And we go into subtracting mixed numbers. Alrighty, so the process for subtracting mixed numbers. To subtract mixed numbers, we use a similar process to that which we use for adding mixed numbers. So when writing mixed numbers, write them in a vertical format. When you subtract the whole numbers, then you subtract the numerators of the fractions and bring down the denominators as usual. So this is the horizontal. You take this and you put it vertically. 5 minus 3 is 2, 7 minus 3 is 4. So simply 2 and 4/8. Obviously, you could reduce that down if you wanted to. Another example, you have 9 3/4 minus 5 3/4. You line them up straight up and down vertically. 9 3/4 minus 5 and 3/4. You simply cross out the 3/4 and you get left is just a simple 4. We'll watch this video here, and they're going to take us through a little bit more steps, a few more steps that'll help you, that'll break it down a little bit better.
Now let's move on to lesson 3, adding and subtracting mixed numbers. To help us, here's a special friend of baby Leon and little Lola. This is Carla, the babysitter. She looks after baby Leon and little Lola every Friday and Saturday evening. This is Saturday night, so Carla needs to add her total number of hours. Yesterday, Carla babysat for 3.5 long hours. Tonight, she's supposed to watch the little angels for 3/4 of an hour. 3.5 plus 3/4. How do we add a mixed number and a fraction? First, we change the mixed number to an improper fraction. 3 1/2 is equal to 7 halves. In Carla's problem, we can substitute 7 halves for 3.5. Now we're adding two fractions, but the denominators are different. We must find a common denominator. Can we change 7 halves to an equivalent fraction with 4 as the denominator? Yes. We can multiply 7 halves by 2 over 2, which equals 14/4. In the problem, we substitute 14/4 for 7 halves. Now we have a common denominator. We're ready to add. We keep the common denominator, 4. Then we add the numerators. 14 plus 3 is 17. The total is 17/4. Since 17/4 is an improper fraction, we must rename it like we learned in tape 2. 17/4 is equal to 4 1/4. Carla will get paid for 4 1/4 hours. Here are 4 rules for adding or subtracting mixed numbers. Rule 1. Change the mixed number to an improper fraction. Rule 2. If necessary, find a common denominator. Rule 3. Add or subtract the numerators. And last, simplify the answer.
Alrighty. So, how many hours did Carla work in total? She worked 4 hours, 4 1/4 hours. So now we're going to subtract 5 3/4 minus 2 1/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on another way to record some things. Is if I actually hit start a meeting. Ooh. So if you guys knew when I was doing this, you could have jumped on and seen this meeting live. The reason why I'm doing that is so that way I can use this video right here. So using this video over here, so what we're going to do is we're going to, why does this pop up? We are going to do 5 3/4. Well, I gotta turn it on first, don't I? On and light and action. There we go. So 5 3/4. This 5 3/4 minus 2 1/4. Whoops, 2 1/4. Okay, let's see it now on the camera. There you go. So we're trying to do that problem right there. So you take 3 minus 1 is 2, and you simply just bring down the 4. Bring down the 4 over here, so break this 4, and then 5 minus 2 is 3, so 3 2/4 or also equals to 3 1/2 if you were going to break it down. And let's see if we are correct, and I bet we are. Yes, we are correct. All right, let's go on to the next one. So we have a lot of problems here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write these problems out on this side, and that way we can kind of get them all going. So 5 1/3 minus 3 1/3. And what you're going to notice about these 14 9/10 is that you'll notice that the denominators are all going to be the same, which makes our problems working or problem solving much easier. 28 4/7 minus 15 3/7. You're probably asking yourself, will we actually do some with different denominators? Of course we will. Will we do those today? No, we will not. 19 3/5 minus 4 1/5. So I'm just going to do the first 4 problems. I'm going to leave the final 2 problems for you to do on your own. So first thing we need to do is we need to rewrite this so it goes vertically or straight up and down. So if we rewrite this vertically straight up and down, so that's 5 1/3 minus 3 1/3. So 1/3 crosses out 1/3, so that leaves us with the only answer of 2. 5 minus 3. 14 9/10 and 8 4/10. We're subtracting these, so 9 minus 4 is 5/10 still, and 14 minus 7, I believe, is 6. So that makes it actually going to be 6 1/2 because we are making these, we're reducing the fraction. Let's try this next one. So this is 28 4/7 minus 15 3/7. So we simply do 4 minus 3 is 1/7, and 28 minus 15 is simply 13. And the last one is 19 3/5 minus 4 1/5. So what we do is 3 minus 1 is 2/5. 19 minus 4 is 15. 15 2/5. So I will confirm our answers. I'm going to turn this guy off, quit. Maybe I'll get my camera back. If I quit and turn that off, maybe, I guess I didn't get my camera back. I'm still a little bit wobbly there. We'll check our answers. We got 2, yes. The next one should be 6 1/2, yes. The next one should be 13 1/7, yes. And the next one should be 15 2/5. So we're good there. And I want you guys to do these final 2 on your own. So then that takes you guys to your quiz. And in your quiz, I'll do the little quick preview is, remember, if you look at all same common denominator, same common denominator, same common denominator, and same common denominator. Remember, line them up vertically, straight up and down. It's going to help you out a lot. Our next assignment on here is to do is scoop pad. Make sure that you're doing at least 10 points of scoop pad. 10 points of scoop pad for today. So 10 points of math scoop pad is what you should be doing. So that'll probably take you about 20 minutes. And doing this quiz right here would take you about 20 minutes. So that's 40 minutes of work right there. Okay, so that's 40 minutes of work. The next thing on there that I want to talk to you guys about is probably one of the most important ones to me, which is going to be our Ed puzzle about Major Taylor, Major Marshall Taylor. Major Marshall Taylor is part of our Black History Month curriculum. Major Marshall Taylor is a famous cyclist. He's a famous, well-known cyclist, and somebody that definitely is important to my life because I'm really big into cycling, and cycling a lot for me is very important. But also for Black History Month, Major Marshall Taylor is one of the very first Black athletes to earn a lot of money and be very successful. And during his time period when he was doing this, it was very hard. He had to deal with all kinds of racism and bigotry and just unfair treatment towards him. So we will watch this together. And as we're watching together, I'm not going to go over the answers. I just want to make sure that we all see it because this is very important material here. Plus, I enjoy cycling, so it hits me on two fronts.
NBC4 presents Positively Black.
Major Taylor began winning races at 13 years old in 1891. One of his last was an old-timers meet in 1970.
So Major Taylor began winning races at what age? 13, 14, or 15?
1917. He was 39 and still winning. In terms of wealth, his is a rags to riches to rags story. But in total, Taylor was a world-class athlete and gentleman. Marshall W. Taylor was born November 26, 1878. He lived...
So when was Marshall Taylor born? November 25th, 1878, November 26th, 1978, or November 26th, 1878?
Lived in rural Indianapolis with his parents and 7 siblings until age 8 when the wealthy white...
So where did Marshall Taylor live, and who did he live with? So what city and whom did he live with?
White family who employed his father engaged him as a companion for their son. But when that family moved...
So how was Marshall introduced to wealth, to the wealthy lifestyle?
Family moved to Chicago in 1891, Taylor's mother refused to let him join them. Taylor set about earning money, taught himself trick...
So what happened in 1891 to Marshall? Mark all that apply. A, the family took Marshall as a companion and moved to Charleston. B, Mrs. Taylor would not allow Marshall to leave with the established family. C, the family took Marshall in as a companion, moved to Chicago. Or D, Marshall had a bad cycling accident.
Trick riding and landed a job at a bike shop. He performed for customers wearing a uniform, which earned him the nickname Major.
He was an African American.
So use to the wealthy lifestyle, what did Marshall Taylor do to earn income for the family? A, Marshall landed a job at the bike shop fixing broken bikes. B, Marshall did trick riding and landed at bike shop performing for customers. Or C, Marshall landed at a bike shop working at the register and helping stock bike parts.
An African American pioneer who hasn't been paid very much attention.
Andrew Ritchie worked to change that with his book Major Taylor, The Extraordinary Career of a Champion Bicycle Racer. NBC Sports taped a tribute to Taylor during the '96 Olympics. It included his daughter.
So what year was a tribute made to Marshall Taylor? 97, 98, 95, or 1996?
And grandson.
My father was the world's first Black champion of anything.
I think he was an American hero, but he hasn't gotten the recognition.
Right from the beginning of his racing career, he was recognized as an outstanding athlete.
Taylor quickly gained a following as an amateur. He made his professional debut at Madison Square Garden in 1896.
So when and where did Marshall make his national debut? This is an historic place that still exists today in New York City.
Winning the half-mile open handicap and the $200 purse. That year, he unofficially broke 2 world records during an Indianapolis race, but whites, offended by his wins, banned him from Indy's capital city track. First,
I probably should point out, this is before helmet technology was around. Because whites were offended by Marshall's Indianapolis race wins, what did the people do to make sure that Marshall couldn't win again?
With mentor advisor Bertie Munger, Taylor moved to Worcester, Massachusetts.
The League of American Wheelmen had in their bylaws on a state-by-state basis that blacks were not allowed. The exception was Massachusetts.
So what state accepted black athletes? Spelling, it's okay. Come close.
But Taylor still faced racism, crooked referees, and violence throughout his career. Still, he kept winning races.
So what 3 issues did Marshall Taylor face even though the state accepted black athletes? Marked all that apply. Violence, crooked referees, support, or racism.
Races and admirers, black and white. At the time he was competing, biking was as popular as baseball, and racers were superstars. Major Taylor led the pack.
He was making in the range of $15,000 to $25,000 at a time when a contemporary like Ty Cobb at the time was making $4,500.
He retired in 1910 at age 32. Later, poor health, failed investments, and the Depression wiped out his wealth.
So Marshall Taylor made between $15,000 and $25,000. He was able to retire in 1910 at the age of 32. Imagine retiring at the age of 32. I would have been retired by now. That's crazy. Hardship happened and wealth was wiped out. What were the 3 factors that caused that? Remember, he was getting paid more than some of the greatest baseball players in the time. Ty Cobb, one of the greatest baseball players during that time period, he was getting paid a lot more money than him. And baseball was very, very popular, as so is cycling now, too.
With his last funds, Taylor published his autobiography in 1928, titled The Fastest Bicycle Rider in the World. He sold the books out of his car. Taylor wrote, "I am writing my memoirs in the spirit calculated to solicit simple justice, equal rights, and a square deal for the posterity of my downtrodden but brave people, not only in athletic games and sports, but in every honorable game of human endeavor." Taylor died in 1932. For Positively Black, I'm Sue.
Okay, so I don't really give out necessarily extra credit, but I do want to give you guys an opportunity here because Major Taylor is so important to cycling, and cycling is so important to me. Here's what I'm going to offer you guys to do. Make me a slideshow, okay? The slideshow must have the following. You must have 5 slides, okay? Each one of those 5 slides, there must be a picture or some kind of media, picture, video, GIF, whatever it is, about Major Taylor, and each of those slides must have at least 10 words about Major Taylor, about his life, about his cycling career, anything to do with Major Taylor. That's what I'm looking for. And if you just send it to me, I will give you extra credit. I'm really looking forward to this because Major Taylor, like I said, is very important to me in terms of cycling, and definitely very important to the black community for being one of the very first black athletes that were famous and very wealthy and successful for doing what he did, which was cycling, being the fastest bicycle rider in the world. So this takes us to our next assignment. Before we jump into our next assignment, I do want to make sure that you guys know that Zern, you should be on mission 2 level 29 by the end of today. So I would set a timer, maybe 20-minute timer, and work really hard on Zern mission 2 level 29. So you guys got a lot of work to do today. You have the Ed puzzle you need to get the answers to. You got Zern you need to get the answers to. You got 10 points of scoop pad, plus your subtracting mixed numbers quiz. And on top of that, we still have one more quiz we need to do. And that one more quiz is in your social studies Canvas page. And that will be due today at the end of the day today is that when that'll be due. This is a little bit longer of a lesson. So let's go ahead and jump right into this lesson. And there it is, a new nation. All right, so Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was president of the United States from 1829 to 1837. He was born in Log Cabin in 1767. He was along the border between North Carolina and South Carolina. His parents were very poor Irish immigrants. His father died a few days after he was born, leaving his mother alone with his 3 sons. She moved in with his sister's family in order to make life easier for all of them. When he was 13, Andrew, his brother, Robert, another brother who had been killed in the battle, joined the local militia to help fight the British. They were captured, and Andrew suffered a serious sword injury on his hand and head, and he refused to shine shoes when he refused to sign shoes of the British captor. Those scars stayed with him for his entire life. Robert died of smallpox not long after his experience, and soon their mother became ill and died as well. At just 14, Andrew was all alone. After a few years, he became interested in studying law and became a successful attorney. Through his lucrative private practice and buying and selling of land, he became wealthy. Andrew owned many slaves at his Hermitage, his plantation near Nashville, Tennessee. He loved to gamble and bought himself several racehorses. It is important to point out that he was a slave owner. The Battle of New Orleans. Jackson was well known for leading the United States troops to a victory in the Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812. We learned about this a little bit earlier in our unit, but let's go into more details now. In those days, divorce was very rare. Andrew's wife had been previously married, and when the two of them were wed, they both thought she was divorced. Unfortunately, her divorce was not yet final. They were married 6 months later when they were sure her divorce was complete. But it was too late to stop those who wished to criticize and insult the couple. Andrew had a fierce and violent temper. He often challenged people to duels to solve simple disagreements and arguments, especially when they involved any kind of insult to his wife. He believed that it was these insults that eventually caused his wife to die of a heart attack. Andrew Jackson led the American soldiers to a victory during the War of 1812. In the Battle of New Orleans. In 1829, General Andrew Jackson was elected President of the United States. It was his second attempt. He was especially proud because he was the first president who had come from a very humble beginning. In the past, American presidents had been born into wealthy families. Andrew Jackson worked hard for what he had. Here are some other negatives about Andrew Jackson, though. After all those positives, President Andrew Jackson, was very strong opinions about Native Americans and the U.S. government's policy about them should be. He believed that all Native people should be moved across the country west. He wanted white people to have the Native Americans' fertile farmland and wasn't interested in Native Americans' rights at all. Native men and women and children were forced to move across the Mississippi River to Oklahoma. Thousands of Native Americans died along that trip. We're going to watch this video to learn more about Andrew Jackson and his presidency.
The election of 1824 had four major candidates in the running: Henry Clay, William Crawford, Andrew Jackson, the victorious general of the Battle of New Orleans, and John Quincy Adams, son of the country's second president. Since none of the candidates received enough popular votes to win the election, the House of Representatives had to decide the winner. They chose John Quincy Adams, who served until the next election when Andrew Jackson beat him by a landslide. Jackson was the first Westerner to become president. His experience...
Sorry about that. I had a little technical glitch
as a pioneer, a lawyer, and then a general, gave him a diverse enough background to help him relate more closely to the common people. He saw that the majority of American citizens wanted a government that promoted business and trade. He saw that the federal government's preoccupation with wars and international affairs had worn thin for many people. Small business owners, industrial workers, and westbound settlers all agreed that the country needed less chaos and more order. They wanted more lands opened up for settlement, more laws to encourage industrial development and expand business opportunities. They wanted their country to forget about the rest of the world and to focus on its own growth and internal affairs. Jackson gave them what they wanted. Under his presidency, the power of the federal government increased, while the relative power of the states decreased. Jackson promoted the Western expansion, even when it meant challenging the law. He refused to carry out a Supreme Court ruling that ordered the return of land to Native Americans in Georgia. He was criticized sharply for this action by older political leaders, who felt he was wielding more power than the executive branch of the government was meant to have.
Alrighty, so you can see his hot temper a little bit there and defying what the Supreme Court said he should do. What did Jackson decide to do for settlers? He opened up more land for settlement, but also caused a lot of problems as a result. John Ross and the Trail of Tears. By the time Andrew Jackson had served 2 terms as president, nearly all the Native Americans on the East Coast had been forced out of their homes. When the Seminoles resisted, they were nearly destroyed. The white people were happy because they got more land. The Native peoples were unhappy because they did not want to leave their land and villages in the East. John Ross led the fight against the removal of Native Americans from their territory. He was 1/8 Cherokee and used to play Native American games when he was a child. In the early 1820s, Ross and others decided to make legal moves to prevent the forced removal of Cherokees. The Cherokee tribe was organized as a nation, had its own constitution patterned after the Constitution of the United States of America. John Ross was the president of the Cherokee Constitutional Convention and was elected principal chief in 1828. For 10 years, he fought with white man words. In 1835, the Cherokee land was signed away to the settlers. The Cherokee marched into exile, and this march has been known as the Trail of Tears because the numbers of Cherokees who died along the way. In the summer of 1838, 7,000 U.S. soldiers went to remove the Cherokee. Ross asked the government for permission to remove his people over the land in cooler weather and under their own leadership. The request was granted. Of the 13,000 Cherokee, over 1,000 escaped to the Great Smoky Mountains and 4,000 died, including John's wife. They walked during the winter from Tennessee to Oklahoma. Ross wanted to see the Cherokees become the most educated Native people in the country. He spent his whole life trying to improve the conditions for the Cherokee. The legend of Cherokee Rose. From the Trail of Tears arose a beautiful legend of Cherokee Rose. No better symbol exists than the pain and suffering of the trail where they cried, the Cherokee Rose. The legend goes through the mothers of the Cherokee grieved so much that the chiefs prayed for a sign to lift the mother's spirits and give them strength to care for the children. From that day forward, a beautiful new flower, a rose, grew wherever a mother's tear fell to the ground. The rose is a white for the mother's tears and has a gold center for the gold taken from the Cherokee lands, and 7 leaves on each stem that represents the 7 Cherokee clans that made the journey. To this day, the Cherokee Rose prospers along the route of the Trail of Tears. The Cherokee Rose is now the official flower of the state of Georgia. It is a very beautiful rose. If you look at this map with me here, you can see the Cherokee, the route that they took, and these are the Seminole here. The Cherokee are here and here, and you can see the different routes that they took. They did the kind of the yellow oranges route here, but it wasn't just their tribe that had to move. You had the Cherokee, the Creek, the Chickasaw, and the Choctaw all moved, while the Seminoles battled and were forced almost into submission down here in Florida. Whoa, I skipped something. The Cherokee alphabet was developed by a boy named Sequoyah. His mother was Cherokee and his father was a white trader. Sequoyah and his mother lived in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. Maybe some of you guys have been to the Smoky Mountains before. Sequoyah was a clever lad that learned about blacksmith and silversmith trades as a youth. Eventually, Sequoyah married a Cherokee woman. In 1812, he went to war on the side of the Americans. After the war, he spent most of his time working on the Cherokee alphabet. He felt that the white men were making treaties on paper that the Native Americans could not read. One day, Sequoyah was walking away with his daughter, Ayokoko, and he learned to listen to birds when they were made up sounds of some words that had the same sounds. So this takes us to a new nation quiz. Before you guys go, I want to remind you guys, you need to make sure you're doing your subtracting mixed numbers quiz, that you are doing your Ed Puzzle, doing the questions for Ed Puzzle, that you're doing your Zern and Zern Mission 2 level 29, and you're getting 10 points in ScoopPad. I will see you guys tomorrow morning at 8:45, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and make sure you get this work done. Just because the video's over doesn't mean the work isn't done.